Okay.
All right. We're official.
We're official. So greetings, friends. It is lovely to see you. Of course, I can't really see any of you. At this point, there aren't even any of you out there, but we're going to pretend that we're recording in front of a live audience, and we'll just have to make enough noise between the two of us to make this work. So Chris Miller, with the National Association of Community Capital, or NC3, with one of our favorite partners. All of our partners are our favorite partners, right? But one of our favorite partners, and actually one of your partners, looks like Melissa is going to join us as well. So, Brent Forsberg, who is well, tell them who you are. Let's start with that. So,
Yeah. So I'm a developer in the greater Lansing area, Michigan, and focus has been residential, new developments, and infill. And the philosophy behind my work is how do we bring communities together using the built environment? So really excited with the projects that we have worked on and the community engagement that we're able to get around it, because that's the key of what we're doing is how do we bring agency back to communities that haven't seen a lot of investment over the last 20 and 30 years.
so that sounds pretty weird, Brent, that you're just not worried about building buildings. So, talk about that a little bit because normally when we're talking to real estate developers, it's all about the money, it's all about the project, it's all about the construction. The developer is managing a whole bunch of tranches of capital, and the goal is to make money out of this project. But you're not the regular developer, it seems like.
Well, I am a traditional developer in that sense of what you just brought up, and all of those are pieces that make the developments happen. But my focus tends to be more on the why behind the development. We go into communities. One thing that's important to keep in mind for developers is we're changing the patterns of life in those communities for 10, 20, sometimes 50 years. So when we're looking at neighborhood scale development, especially, and neighborhood scale development is working in areas that uh, uh, have the community groups that are active and working to build their communities. It's very important to remember to be a part of that. All of the other pieces with the financing, that's a huge part of the job of development. And, working with the banks, working with municipalities to actually get the project approved is really only one part of it. And the other part is making sure that long term it's going to be used by the community because that's how developments are become successful and over the long term. So I think that it's something that needs to be talked more about in this industry is the fact that we can have a longer term return on projects by making sure that the community is involved, engaged, and has that emotional connection to the projects. And that comes from the understanding what are the values of the communities that these projects are going into. So, the parts that you brought up are extremely important and are the crux of the job, making sure that you have the skill set to get the financing, to put the right team in place for pre-development and construction, then the operating team that makes sure that the project is functioning as it should. But having that value piece is just so important when we're working in communities.
That's great, and I'm gonna use a weak analogy, but to think about this like maybe a physician could potentially think about. So somebody comes in and has a broken leg, and the physician is going to fix the leg, and is really focused on the leg and is just thinking about that leg. It sounds to me like your approach to development is not just to think about the leg, but about that whole human being and how that human being is going to live their life, et cetera. Is that a fair analogy? Although again, a little shaky, or
No, absolutely. When when we look at it as a holistic approach, and we use what's called a five capitals approach. So it's understanding the underlying ecology, the resources that are available in the community, and the resources available to build the project, and then understanding that within the human-centered experience, because all of this is about creating places for people to gather, to build trust, and to allow individuals to have a better experience of life. And then with that, we use the built environment to help facilitate that. And that's one thing that's where my focus and bias is, being in infrastructure and in construction. But it's more than that too, because the social connections that come from it are such a huge piece of development. We talk about mixed use. And what is the idea of mixed use, right? It's bringing businesses that can support people that live in an area into that same space for walkability. And understanding those social connections are important. And with that, also the knowledge of what have past decisions done to influence the growth of our communities, both good and bad, but also that knowledge of where do we want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and understanding all of those pieces as a project's being designed. Then there's a traditional financial capital that's important as well, and that's the model that we're working within. And one of the things that we're excited about with the Lansing Growth Fund, a piece of what we're doing, is putting that agency of investment back into the community that's been disconnected for so long. And there's lots of policies and rules that have made it the way it is since the 1930s. And just in the last decade or so, those rules are shifting again to really allow that local ecosystem to build. And one of the things with development that what you brought up in the beginning, where developers are focused, it is a lot of work because projects are considered risky in how during the construction, right? Because if it doesn't get built, it's not getting a return. The banks can't get paid. The investors can't get paid. So it becomes that major focus because there's so many regulations and there's a lot of paperwork that goes into it, especially as the banking industry continues to centralize and we lose those local connections. So the process that we're using as a team is really bringing that back down to that local level, using local resources and banks as much as possible to be able to get these projects, but then aligning it within what the community values are.
Awesome. I couldn't have said it better myself. So that's a little scary. So for you especially. Um, so what's been really great. So we've been working with Brent and his team, including John Knott, who is a developer and an educator, and I know was a part of your thinking and the part of the work that you're doing from an academic perspective, and really looked at and is thinking about as we build communities, thinking about those in a very holistic way, looking at the built environment, looking at the environmental issues. I know we're even looking, part of this project is workforce development, which is just fantastic to be thinking about all of those things in one fell swoop. And of course, for NC3, our piece of this puzzle is around the capital. So we're really excited as we're building this pretty remarkable project in Lansing, Michigan State Capital, to have community investors, the folks that are impacted by this project, actually being part of the investment for it. And actually a foundational kind of piece of that investment, not just bringing in some capital, but potentially, I think, the most important capital because of the folks who are going to be impacted. I wonder if you take a couple of minutes, Brent, and just talk about the specifics of this first project. So it's the Lansing Growth Fund is the fund that we're building, a diversified community investment fund. And the first project is the project which you're going to take to fruition, and talk a little bit about what that looks like.
Yeah. So it is really exciting. The Lansing Growth Fund's being set up, and one of our board members, Melissa Hall's here on the call, is set up to be a place that people can invest in their community. So it's a mission-driven fund that's focused on how do we get long-term benefits back to our local communities and stop this disconnection of out-of-town investment coming into communities. Not stop it, but come alongside of that really allows communities to have a say in how they grow. So the term that you use, retail investors, is important. The understanding, also called non-accredited investors, to be able to have a tool that they can invest in that aligns with the values of their communities, also have a say in board representation of how those values are implemented over time. So this is set up to evolve for future projects. The first project is Homes in Pleasant Grove, and it's a large partnership with so many people and groups that have come together to make this happen. And its focus is resetting walkability in a community that was built during the 1950s and 60s, where we were more car-centric in our design and really got away from those neighborhood center designs that we built with for thousands of years. And we've seen the damage that's caused in the communities because there's really no place for people to come together. And COVID kind of changed that, where we had that moment to breathe and understand that we like to be able to gather and come together and have those moments. And the infrastructure of this project is designed to have a plaza, to have places for people to gather, to have supporting commercial alongside the residential that we're putting in. In the first phase, we're going to have a bank and a foundation come in that in an area that doesn't have a bank within a couple miles. That ecosystem has kind of fallen out of this area of Lansing. Then we also have an accelerator kitchen coming in to help small businesses grow and thrive. And the idea is for them not to just stay in the space, but be able to seed and hopefully receive investment from the fund in the future to fill the underutilized commercial that's around the space and really retrofit that neighborhood center back at the corner of Holmes and Pleasant Grove. And it starts with the idea that this property was land bank controlled for years. And if you're not familiar with land banks, it's important to kind of understand their role where they can take properties that have come off the tax roll and work to help revitalize and recatalyze areas, which is what this is a catalytic project. And the other piece that's important to understand, you had mentioned about the workforce. When we talk about affordability, there's two ways to approach it, right? One, we try to keep our costs down on the project so that they can get a return and make investors happy, so they want to do more projects in that traditional sense. And by keeping the costs down and being good stewards of the construction process, we're able to offer a little bit lower rents and still meet the returns that we have to meet. But the other piece is how do we create that long-term wealth stability in our communities? So this area is at about 48% of the Alice Index asset limited income constrained employed, which is pretty high. I mean, Michigan's got a pretty high Alice Index. I think it's in the low 40s as a whole, and that means that you are generally within 2 to 4 weeks of having a catastrophic event financially in your household, and it also, then there's the poverty level below. But we're really looking at that level of that uh, missing middle or workforce. And by providing career pathways and tying local people into jobs in these communities, in these projects, we're able to set career pathways that allow for that household wealth to build. And that's one of the core pieces of our approach is how do we build that whole ecosystem? And it's called the non-movable economy. This idea that we're building local. And there's lots of different groups working on this around the country, supporting small businesses. Because every dollar that stays in the community and recirculates in the community allows for the community to grow faster and stronger. So that's a key tenet of what we're working on in this and how this approach works with the development.
Oh, that is a fantastic place for us to kind of wrap up this quick 15-minute conversation. But I really love the phrase non-movable economy. And that is certainly what we're about as we're building funds across the country and excited for this project in Lansing. I wanted to also note the role of the county and the county land bank here, really financing this part of the work, building the fund, et cetera. So we're proud of that relationship and proud of this really our first opportunity to work directly with a real estate developer on a project. We've had a lot of conversations with real estate developers about putting community capital, that investment from regular folks, non-accredited investors most frequently, the folks who are stakeholders and are impacted by these projects. And so we're delighted to put all of those pieces of the puzzle together here. That's our 3 or 4 pieces of the puzzle. Brent has about 700 more pieces on his side of the puzzle as well that he's doing. And we really appreciate the opportunity to work with you. And we look forward to giving updates as this project moves forward, but we're getting close here at the end of October in 2025. So we'll see
Yeah.
how it goes. So
Well, thank you. And what you said about those 700 pieces, if you check out the website, lansinggrowthfund.com, you can see all of the strategic partners that are part of this. And there's more that are coming on board each day. And a project like this doesn't happen without all of that involvement. And it's really exciting. And I appreciate the Coalition for Community Capital support on this and excited to have a groundbreaking soon.
we look forward to it. All right. Thanks again, Brent, for being here today. Be well and stay at it, my friend.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. So we will stop recording.